Hello and welcome to It's the Bees. My name is James. In this series of videos, I'd like to show you what it takes for someone with zero experience to get into beekeeping. And by zero experience, I mean I have absolutely no knowledge of bees whatsoever. The aim of these videos is to show the average Joe what it takes to start beekeeping from scratch, so you can decide for yourselves whether you want to invest time, effort and money into this hobby. I have only a second-hand hive, a couple of tools, a beekeeping manual, and some knowledgeable friends to get me started. As a disclaimer, I'm a complete beginner, and these videos should not be used for advice on beekeeping. There are plenty more experienced people out there who you should listen to for help. These videos are intended only to document my journey for those of you who have somehow found their way to the arse end of YouTube. I live in a rural location on the banks of the River Severn in the Forest of Dean, Gloucestershire, England. It's currently mid-March. Around here, cottage gardens are plenty, and, together with my own modest garden, this area provides a great location for a colony of bees to take residence. This episode will focus on cleaning the hive I've kindly been lent. It's a pretty ropey, well-used national hive, so called because it's the former British standard when it comes to beehives. You can get these new for not much money, but I'm skimping out and putting in the effort to bring this one up to scratch. The colony of bees that previously occupied this hive has long since perished. The suspected cause of its demise was the sustained robbing of winter honey supplies by wasps, and the evidence of this is entombed inside. Wax moth has set in, and the whole hive needs a scrub down to make it ready for a colony of bees. I've learnt so far that the hive comprises a series of modular components. The floor, the entrance block, the brood box, brood frames, 11 of these sit inside the brood box, the queen excluder, the super frames, around 10 of these sit in my super, the crown cover, and the roof that overhangs the super below. All these components seemed confusing to me, and their individual purposes unclear at first. I'll explain more about them throughout my videos. First, the frames. The frames are where the bees will construct their hexagonal comb for breeding and storing honey. The frames sit side by side in their respective boxes. Brood, or deep, frames in the brood box, and super, or shallow, frames in the super. The frames I've got are in various different states. Here is a super frame that has its original beeswax foundation more or less untouched. Here is another super frame that still has its healthy comb attached. Here is a brood frame that has a particularly unhealthy looking comb and a wax moth infestation. And here is an empty brood frame. As recommended by my bee manual and knowledgeable friends, my job this week is to clean the brood frames and the brood box in order to start my hive afresh, pest and disease free. This is a hive tool with useful scrapers and levering points for removing the frames from their respective boxes during the season. I'll use a scraper to clean off all the excess comb, propolis, kind of like a bee glue, and wax moth. Firstly, I knock out all the old brood comb. Although a healthy brood comb can be reused by bees, it saves them time, effort and resources, it should be removed at this point because of the risk that potential disease from the previous colony may be present. To give the bees a head start when they settle in a new frame, a beekeeper installs beeswax foundation, a flat sheet of beeswax with a slightly raised hexagonal pattern. The foundation is held strong by wire which is crimped into the frame. I'll be putting in new foundation later, but for now, I need to remove the old wire along with the comb. I then scrape all the wooden bits of the frame to remove wax and propolis that's stuck to the wood. I also remove the wax moth eggs and larvae. Wax moth appears on beeswax that's been stored in a relatively warm area. It lays eggs on the frame and wax, and the eggs hatch into larvae which eat through the comb and create webbing and cocoons. The larvae like to burrow into nooks and crannies in the frames to begin pupating. This bit of the frame crimps the wire that holds the foundation in place. I can remove it by removing these screws, and some of the others are held in by pins, to get at the wax moth that's underneath. This is a wax moth larvae in its cocoon. They tend to get into the really tight corners. Once I've removed all the excess wax and propolis, I use a heat gun on all the frames and the brood box to ensure parasites and viruses are killed off. And the final step in the cleaning process is to freeze the frames to kill off any remaining wax moth. Once this is done, the brood box will be ready to receive my first colony of honeybees. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video interesting. In the next video, I'll cover purchasing more equipment including beeswax foundation and a bee suit. I'll also look at how to acquire my first colony of bees. Thanks again.